Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I want to be clear, though, this committee continues to fail to conduct oversight on the most important issues that my constituents care about, whether it's the allegations of chronic and extreme lawbreaking by ICE, the politicization of the DOJ, FCC, and other executive branch offices to go after Trump's critics, the repeated attacks on Congress's Article I authorities, including the illegal taxation of goods imported into the United States, tariffs, or the illegal withholding of funds appropriated by Congress, aka impoundments, and on and on and on. And incredibly, virtually the entire Republican caucus has refused to sign the discharge petition to release the entire Epstein files. Earlier this year, GOP leadership recessed early, hoping that the Massey-Khanna discharge petition would fade away. But that is not going to happen. We're going to keep fighting. We're now one vote shy of the 218
Would the gentleman
needed.
yield to a question?
Four Republicans, including 3 on this committee, have been brave enough to sign that petition.
Would the gentleman
Meanwhile,
yield
the
a
rest of the
question?
conference continues to stay silent.
Would you yield to a question from me?
Absolutely.
Are you not keeping up with the oversight committee? We have requested more information than the discharge petition, and I think you're trying to create a false narrative that this committee's not doing anything or Republicans not doing anything. This committee's been very aggressive.
I applaud the work that the committee is doing, but it is proceeding piecemeal, and the discharge petition, as I understand it, would require the entire release of the Epstein files. They're not inconsistent with each other, and I think
and then it has to go to the Senate.
Respectfully, to
You want us to just wait? You just want us to just drop everything in the Epstein and wait for the Senate?
I don't understand why the Oversight Committee can't do oversight while also signing on to the discharge petition. Because we are asking for piecemeal items from the FBI and DOJ. We are not asking, as I understand it,
we've asked for everything. We've asked for everything. Now, I'll yield back to your time.
And if I could have a little more time, I'd appreciate it. I urge my colleagues to fulfill our constitutional responsibilities and to do right by the survivors and sign on to that. And respectfully, Mr. Chair, I would urge you to consider that as well. But I want to turn to today's hearing because I believe this is largely political theater meant to distract us from the fact that Donald Trump is illegally deploying thousands of military troops in the streets of Washington, D.C., following on his illegal deployment of military personnel in Los Angeles. And now he's threatening to deploy the military in cities like Chicago, New York, and Portland over the objections of the local mayors and governors. Now, as a reminder, state governors have broad latitude to call up their National Guard, but the president's authority is very limited, and it is limited under Title X authority, which is expressly limited to 3 circumstances. 1, when the United States is invaded or in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. 2, there's a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. Or 3, the president is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. So I want to ask you all to raise your hands if you agree with the following question. Do you believe the United States is being invaded? I want to know for the record there are no hands raised. Do you believe there's a rebellion happening?
No.
Again, no hands raised. Do you believe the president is unable to execute the laws of the United States without the National Guard?
No.
No hands raised. That's right. Donald Trump, ironically, is using a trumped-up crisis over crime to break the law.
Will the gentleman yield?
No. In January 2024, a group called United to Protect Democracy published a report entitled The Authoritarian Playbook for 2025, which warned explicitly that if Trump were elected, he would likely follow the same playbook used by authoritarians like Vladimir Putin in Russia, Recep Erdogan in Turkey, Viktor Orban in Hungary, and others. It outlines a number of actions they expected President Trump to take during his second term. So I want you to raise your hand if you think the Trump administration is doing the following. Issuing pardons to licensed lawbreaking.
Yes.
Raise your hands if you agree with that. Directing investigations against critics and rivals.
Yes.
Regulatory retaliation.
Yes.
Federal law enforcement overreach.
Yes.
Domestic deployment of the military.
Yes.
It probably won't surprise you to know that as this is exactly what these authors predicted Trump would take as far as actions if he were elected to second term. But one ironclad rule that is still potentially being forced is the Posse Comitatus Act, which clearly prohibits the use of military personnel, including the National Guard, for law enforcement activities unless specifically authorized by Congress, such as with the Insurrection Act. Now, I've actually asked a lot of the National Guardsmen here that I've run into on the streets whether they are allowed to assist with law enforcement, and they've consistently told me that the answer is no. I asked a guardsman just earlier today what would happen if he saw crime happening right in front of him. He said he could take pictures, videos, he could call the cops, but he is not allowed to engage. So I'm really appreciative of those who serve in our National Guard, and I'm really, really appreciative that, unlike Donald Trump, they are following the law. But this is also just massively wasteful and disrespectful to our National Guardsmen who have been pulled from their families, their jobs, and their communities, all to essentially serve as human scarecrows, or even worse, to clean up our streets and do our landscaping. Yeah. This is not what our Guardsmen were trained to do. It's not what they are signing up to do. It's also massively expensive. President Trump's deployment of the National Guard and Marines to Los Angeles cost over $120 million. The D.C. National Guard's deployment of 958 Guardsmen will cost over $200 million. And while we don't know yet what the deployment of the 1,300 plus other Guardsmen sent from other states will cost, it's likely to be much higher because we're paying for their lodging as well. So basically, we're looking at a deployment cost of over $500 million. For this D.C. deployment, which is doing nothing to stop crime. You could hire thousands of cops with that money. So, Mayor Bowser, I want to ask you a question. What would be more effective in deterring and preventing crime? Deploying over 2,000 National Guardsmen at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars, or sending that money to D.C. for additional law enforcement and crime prevention programs?
And the gentleman's time's expired, but the mayor can answer the question.
I think you took up about a minute of my time, though, sir.
No, we stopped the clock. I watched.
No, you didn't, actually.
We stopped it.
It didn't stop.
We stopped it.
I would say sending the money to D.C., restoring our 2025 approved budget as a start would also help. Additionally, we can do more than law enforcement. We can also assist the federal government with their parks.
I appreciate that answer, and I would just close by saying this. If Trump were serious about stopping crime, he would send greater resources to local law enforcement and try to tackle the root causes. Instead, he's illegally sending troops into our cities, even as he's pardoning criminals, defunding the FBI, and reallocating our scarce federal resources to going after nonviolent offenders. This makes, like day laborers, children, this is making our communities more dangerous, not more safe.
Chair recognized.
During a House Oversight Committee hearing on Friday, Representative Dave Min, Democrat California, and Representative James Comer, Republican Kentucky, clashed over the push to release the full Epstein files through a discharge petition. Min criticized the committee for failing to conduct oversight on issues he argued mattered most to the public. He cited allegations of lawbreaking by ICE, the politicization of agencies such as the DOJ and FCC, unlawful tariffs, and the withholding of congressionally appropriated funds. He stressed that nearly the entire Republican caucus had refused to sign the discharge petition demanding the release of Epstein-related records, even though it was only one signature short of reaching 200. For Republicans, including 3 on the committee, had signed on, but most continued to remain silent. Comer pushed back, arguing that the committee had been aggressive in pursuing oversight and that their requests for information from agencies like the FBI and DOJ already covered much of what was needed. Min countered that piecemeal investigations were not a substitute for full transparency, emphasizing that signing the petition would complement, not compete with, the committee's work. Shifting focus, Min accused former President Donald Trump of using the military illegally in American cities. He pointed to deployments in Washington, Los Angeles, and potential plans for Chicago, New York, and Portland, despite opposition from local leaders. He explained that under Title X authority, the president can only deploy troops in cases of invasion, rebellion, or when federal laws cannot be enforced with existing resources. Min asked for a show of hands from colleagues on whether any of these conditions applied. None agreed that they did. He argued that Trump was fabricating a crisis to justify breaking the law, pointing to a report titled The Authoritarian Playbook for 2025 that predicted Trump would follow the same strategies as leaders like Vladimir Putin, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and Viktor Orban. The report warned of pardons for political allies, targeting rivals through investigations, regulatory retaliation, law enforcement overreach, and domestic military deployments, all of which Min claimed were already taking place. He also reminded the committee of the Posse Comitatus Act, which bars military forces from engaging in law enforcement without congressional approval. National Guard members on the ground, he noted, confirmed they could not directly intervene in crimes, only observe and report. He described the deployments as wasteful, disruptive to Guardsmen's families and jobs, and demeaning, reducing them to human scarecrows or even street cleaners. The financial burden was another major point. Deployments had already cost more than $120 million in Los Angeles and $200 million in Washington, with total expenses likely to exceed $500 million once lodging and support for out-of-state Guardsmen were included. Min argued the money could have instead funded thousands of local police officers and community prevention programs. When asked directly, Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said restoring the city's approved budget and investing in crime prevention would be far more effective than deploying over 2,000 guardsmen. Min closed by accusing Trump of making communities less safe, noting that while he pardoned criminals and cut resources from agencies like the FBI, he was spending vast sums on military theatrics rather than addressing the roots of crime.